Let's give honor to the source, to the creator, the most high for making all this possible. To the ancestors known and unknown. In this full moon energy, things are very emotional. I don't know if it's like in Cancer or Leo, but either way, both of those signs highlight a lot of things. It's been very intense. I know I've been feeling it individually or collectively. When you do honor it, it's like you don't ignore the signs. You don't ignore the purge, the stuff that comes up around it. Like, my message is like, you know how I dive into a lot of things, but what I will say is when that clarity hit your ass around situations that that has not been processed, like prolonged. I've been talking about prolonged grief and also processing things slowly. You know, slowly processing things later than, you know, like for instance, I'm processing shit from like maybe 2-3 years ago. And the reason I'm relaying this message has a lot to do with the fact of in those moments you have to grant yourself a lot of grace, because I was, you know how sometimes you don't realize certain things in a relationship, not only what you do, whether it be like in a way of like self-inflicted. What I realized when you come into a deeper awareness, you realize how some things can be perceived as self-inflicted because of what you allowed, meaning a form of like self-abuse or in like knowing your worth. That's just how I see it from a duality perspective. Because it's like a part of you were in your role in with someone. A part of you, if you're not able to see yourself, see your role instead of just the finger pointing, then that's how I feel like you forget the bigger picture of where you can be guided to beyond that realm of what things was perceived through, you know, one-dimensionally or through just your lens. When I say like being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, this is where the emotional empathy comes in, because I'm like, dang. I've been in situations where I was like, most people don't really see things until like you're not just in the picture, but the accessibility, like having that, being accessible the same way. And the less accessible I believe you become, the more clear the message is, the more louder the silence is for the person or beings or people who cannot have that access to you. So man, I was sitting here like getting major clarity. Like, you know how we are like, have been programmed to hold on to the, you know, replay, I think that, what is that? Is that complex PTSD? Like when you in the process of repeating traumas, you replay the memories. You know what I'm saying? Like and it's also, I think, that deals with slowly processing things, where if you're not aware of what's happening at that moment, and then you choose not to process it and you repress it, then there's most likely a high percentage that you will repeat the same pattern due to the inability to acknowledge what you truly needed to feel. I had a moment where, again, I was thinking about a scenario that played out. And then I allowed myself to surrender and see beyond how someone else viewed me, how I viewed them, and so forth. And it hit me. And I immediately was like, oh shit, this overwhelmed feeling, emotion came up. And I was like, you know what? Instead of me sitting on the fact of not just what happened and try to replay it, I said, something hit me. It was like, do you not realize, like it hit me like, Do you realize that that shit was supposed to take you out? Are y'all hearing what I'm fucking saying? Do you realize that this is why I emphasize so much on like the awareness around learned behavior patterns, or even unconscious patterns, or even some people not even knowing that they're inflicting pain or causing themselves self-harm, or where we want to step in sometimes, which I'm gonna get to, and prevent people from their lesson. Because some moments when we are entering people's life, they're teaching us something, but we're also teaching them by no longer being accessible. Because in their teaching us something, we need to learn why we shouldn't be as accessible, especially if it's causing harm to our mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. For instance, I give you a rundown where I knew, being at a time a person I knew, because I was more aware of what I was on my journey. I had a more deeper awareness with myself. And I felt like, how a lot of us, let's say, I'm trying to say, how could I say this? Like, how you want to give someone another opportunity or a chance. But I feel like what's overlooked due to learned behavior patterns is that, do we really ask ourselves, not just if we're ready, but being that we didn't really learn how to have, especially if we grew up in a dysregulated family dynamic, then we will go towards what's familiar. So if we did grow up in something dysfunctional, we never were taught how to really question, not just how we feel, how does my body feel? And in saying this is how I've learned over time to become emotionally safe again, recreating and reinventing what emotional safety is for me. And in that, I had to go through shit that we perceive as karmic, which is a lesson, which nothing you can outrun. The energy just shows up in a scenario, a person, an individual. And my biggest thing, I was like, yo, it hit me, and I was like, this shit was supposed to take me out. And what I mean by that, I know a lot of y'all get what I'm saying. You don't realize how deep it goes to you having coming into your higher calling, your purpose, and who you are. You are equipped spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and so forth to walk in alignment, to walk into whomever you're supposed to blossom and become into. Now, in that process, there are people who are here sent and even that who are not in alignment to support or illuminate or mirror back to you what it is and remind you to be in alignment, to remind you of the bigger picture, to remind you why why it is your new season or your journey is to walk into self-care, self-love, balancing out what it is to take care of you and other people. When I say I got so fucking emotional around the fact to where I was even apologizing to myself and my inner child, my body, for allowing myself to go through things that I really didn't have to. And what most people don't realize, in that window of repair is when you distance or almost remove yourself, because there is a process where when you can be in something that is karmic or unhealthy, are you able within there? I was telling a brother this, it's like life is like a hurricane. You got some people spinning and caught up in everything. Their life is like this. And they never become the eye of the storm. That means you are naturally, when you come, how people say, how you come into the room, your presence. Some people's presence is like a hurricane. When you come in, it just shifts everything without you doing anything. But you're so centered with yourself that that's just who you are. So I recognize this, that in that ability to learn that sometimes we can get caught up in the storm with other people's shit, only to remind us to be centered, to stay grounded in our truth. And that's another thing I had to accept, is that people are going to have their truths. And even from their perspective, however it brings them peace, however it brings them satisfaction, that's cool. I told myself that too, because I had to learn to, even with trying to at that time, trying to, when my name was slandered or whatever it is, it's like, I had to counter that and see it as free promotion, but I also had to realize that in certain moments I did have to stand up for myself. But then I also started to recognize, like, the Most High Source would clear my name regardless, or know that if I had pure intentions, then I can acknowledge whether, knowing that my intentions were pure, or knowing that I had intentions on being the best, showing up as the best. But it's not about being perfect, because no matter what, we can't outrun the fact of what's unresolved. So going back to the fact of, like, I got tremendous clarity, like, and then that's where emotions comes along with it. It can come up first or after, but it was more like tears of gratitude, because clarity can come like that. It's an overwhelming feeling if you're not used to it. But as you gradually learn about this journey and experience, everything got lighter. Like, from the emotional body, you become lighter. I started to realize, like, in a situation that I was in at that moment, what I chose to do was to let go of the burden of feeling like I was what people said or the individual said I was. When someone looked at me in my eyes and said they hated me, or wanted to just spew all these different things, and I started to realize, this is who they are. They're hurting. And sometimes people don't realize, like, it's like a little girl and boy that in certain moments, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can say to really try to fix or mend it. Especially if it's, like, too far gone. It's like, what I was getting to is, like, the awareness around the clarity I got of, do you know that shit was supposed to destroy you? Do you know in your life that there were certain things that were meant to destroy you? It was supposed to take you out. Where am I getting at? In detail, like, I was going back to it, like I said, a situation where I in my inability to know more deeper of my worth than I knew back then, I would have never gotten into said relationship, did certain things. But had I not, I would have never been speaking this message. I would have never said these things. But that's the beauty of life, of realizing you don't have all the answers. So now the clarity with that, I start to realize, in, like, especially when I say, this is why it's so deep, like, when I say it was supposed to destroy you, it was supposed to wipe you out, it was supposed to it was supposed to derail you. But even when trains get derailed, they don't lose everything. They still are able to be fixed and put back on track. For some of you to need to, like, just because they're derailed doesn't mean that the track doesn't get fixed, doesn't mean that there's not something that can replace whatever was lost. It's certain things in life I had to realize you're not going to get that time or energy, like, not so. I know we say you're not going to get that time back. You're not going to get that experience back. Doesn't mean you cannot create better or more. Even if it's not with the individual person or whatever. That's the beauty of getting back on track with you. The lessons, and I also now realize the discernment and danger in a lot of things, is realizing that when you realize a lot of things could have literally took you out of here, it brought more awareness to the fact of me realizing when I knew I was not supposed to get in a connection with someone, and I did, I literally came to that self-realization. Like, Divine was like, listen, now that you know, don't ever do it again. Can you see your patterns of why that went on so long? Even if the other person doesn't see, because sometimes that be the most, that it ain't nothing more, you can say words, but at the same time, amazing when you're in something and you both can't even see, or you at the time can't even see the shit that you're in, and you in it so long to where some people stay in it for years or even longer. Some people has left the world in the same shit that never got resolved, that never got talked about, none of that. And where I'm getting at is like a lot of us have walked or got into situations where it was literally supposed to take you out. That could have been emotional, financial, mental, physical, any type of abuse. And once you get that deep clarity, this is where you become so lighter in the chain break, or the what they call it, the revelation, the self-realization of like, yo, it can be something as deep as this person never loved me. They didn't love themselves. And even when they had the opportunity, they never took the chance to get to know themselves better. So then I was like, man. So in that, this is where, you know, the learning of unequally yoked or imbalance, even when we want to refuse to take off the rose-tinted glasses and refuse to see beyond the surface, beyond the physical, what they look like, beyond the fact of how we're taught to just look on the surface and not look deeper and not pick up on. And that's because some of us grew up in things where, you know, that was not so much stripped from us, but due to the fact of what we've experienced, that trauma or that experiences, some of those experiences literally blocked our way of really picking up on intuitively and discernment and listening to our intuition. So, one moment. So yeah, I had to pause there. But the deeper awareness around like what was I saying? The deeper awareness around like, even if you like reflect on childhood or everything, anything. The reason why like I insinuate also on spiritual warfare is there are things, unforeseen forces, when you know you're going through spiritual warfare or going through things that literally wanted to prevent you from getting not just to a place of y'all get so caught up in success or what it looks like on the surface. There are things that not wanted you to even get to a place of clarity. When you hear people talk about spiritual warfare, how people do warfare on people or certain things, how they, you know, y'all use the term witchcraft, whatever it is, just imagine had I not gotten to a place of the depths of learning about a mother wound, a father wound, healing, you know, because I would never be talking about this, have created a YouTube channel, using the gifts that I was given and so forth to share, and being able to see the bigger picture. That's the beauty of clarity. Meaning like there's something that did not want you to get that awareness. It's like there's certain shit that didn't want you to get, figure them out. Y'all know how you be in something and you be like, you know what? And it be that aha moment. And then you start to completely like, not even just remove yourself, but you call back your energy, remove yourself. And then in that calling back your energy, you'll naturally be like on to the next mission, on to the next whatever it is, and it'll just be with ease. That's the thing about self-mastery. And that's the beauty of it. I was like, again, from judging or seeing my own experience, Man, if it was up to some people, they would have loved to certain things to just have happened the way it was. They would have loved for certain things to, especially like if you're a cycle breaker or anything, certain outcomes being that when you see either if you're not able to recognize your learned behavior patterns, then most likely that ending or that what truly is the finish line. You know, what is the goal, especially of people who have dealt with dysfunctionality, right? If you're not awareness of, you know, people never really setting goals or encouraging you to make better conscious decisions or make decisions knowing that it's going to affect everyone, then you unconsciously have goals of self-sabotage and self-destructive behavior. That's how a lot of shit has been set up with the powers that used to be in certain shit in people's life. When people have no encouragement to be their highest version of themselves or go towards their love and bliss, you know, self-care and stuff like that, you're literally unconsciously creating a reality or experience that is not really going to be in your best interest, but it technically is, because if you're willing to see and become aware of it. So it's all about realizing that most of society at the time was just using one side of their brain. And that's where imbalancing comes in. So I'm sitting here like, yo, once I realized, like, again, when people refuse to acknowledge what has been suppressed for so long, it's so obvious that which is in balance is going to keep giving the same results of what is either familiar or what they only know. That's how you start to realize, like, in being the student of life, you will learn that people are teaching you how they want to be loved and how they were loved, how they receive love and so forth. And that don't mean it holds the true frequency of love. It means it shows you their behavior patterns that they learn in the first 7 years of their life in the wombs of their mothers. In their experience, their mother's experience with their father, their experiences with their father as they grew. It's so many things that take into consideration. So I'm sitting here like, yo, the grace comes in where, again, growing up in culture where believing you can just fix things with sex, believing you can just fix things with money, believing you can just fix things with religion, calling on this and doing all that, and never really looking at yourself, never acknowledging what's going on with you. So I was sitting here like, whoa, when I say certain shit was literally sent or could have destroyed you, it had me in a place of like literally crying in the middle of the kitchen, like purging. And I was like, whoa. And where I'm getting at is this. I knew what I had, like, the discipline I had when I was away from someone, to where sometimes we don't realize, and sometimes reconnecting with someone, if we still haven't learned the fact of where you can feel this person has your best interest. They can be amazing, they're beautiful. What can be ignored is still the fact of a lot of us, you know, me, myself, still didn't have boundaries, especially around, let's say, for some of us, some of y'all could have, you know, I talked about before, women with children. You know, if you never learn boundaries, you're not going to know how to set them. Sometimes you're going to have to go through some shit to realize, like, what boundaries actually are. And that's a part of loving yourself, versions of yourself. Men, it goes the same for you. Because either you were never taught, and so now you're wondering why you 30, 40, 50, 60 in this way, and all of a sudden, like, oh man, what? And that's okay. It doesn't matter. We're all still students. We're all still like a child in the eyes of the Most High. It's the courage and persistence, even when navigating it. even when realizing like, dang, had I not got with this person, or had I not reconnected, would it have been different? Absolutely. But the thing about that is, would you have, in knowing now, and this is why I tell people, in knowing, because it's knowledge. Knowing is half the battle. Having knowledge is half the battle. Now that I know this, wisdom comes with applying it, because that's where the discipline comes in. That's where the self-discipline comes in. If I've been growing up in a culture where it just leads with sex, guess what's going to come along my journey? At some point in time, I'm got to realize, like, this has been leading to multiple baby mamas or multiple baby fathers, or my inability not to fucking close it down, shut it down, and learn other aspects of how could I show up differently other than this. Same thing with men leading with money. If, you know, some lessons got to come in, she only wants you for that. Not just because what you're leading with, it's what she's allowing. You know, all these dynamics where, again, is there substance to it? Is there depth to it? You know, those lessons where, how you gonna get mad when you're leading with this? Well, switch it around. Then when you switch it around and realize, like, you want someone to hold space for you emotionally and so forth, because all of that leading with whatever it is comes from an internal place. You're leading either from a wounded place, a holistic place. You're leading, whatever intentions you're leading with, you're going to get the energy in return. And sometimes, some of us, I don't like to use the word victim, but we fall victim to having to go through shit karmically with people to, again, to just remind us that it didn't destroy us. It was supposed to remind us now of the bigger picture. The bigger picture to us learning that hurt people. And when they're hurting, that doesn't mean you can save them. That doesn't mean that you're there to heal them, or, you know, some of us learning that you're there as a guide to mirror back what they need to see within themselves. And in the inability for them to acknowledge that, that's why I had to learn where you stayed too long, or you realize, like, you know, there were times where I came upon this journey where I wanted to share people, man, look, man, you gotta do this. Hey, man, this and this and this. And that's where, you know, some of us can be burnt out. You can get burnt out spiritually, emotionally, and so forth. And so that's why I got to the place where I'm telling y'all, like, how it was supposed to destroy you. Because some of us can take on the loads of other people, and then when you try to take on their emotions and take on things, and even when you're having sex with this person, you're still taking on a part of who they are. That's how powerful, you know, people, you know, we know, not people, but those who know, aware of how powerful sex can be. You're taking on this person's DNA. So when you talk about cultures of people just hoeing around, giving their body willy-nilly and stuff, like, now you think deeper on it when you get to a place where, like, God, not knowing where that person being, it gets so much deeper. So with that, it's like, some people don't make it out. Some people don't make it out of connections. When, let's say you trying to break a cycle of domestic violence, or and you go to a deeper level, on a deeper level of it, you know, for some people it looks different. You could have thought that was normal. Or at the same moment, you start to realize now on a deeper level that this person has really went through something traumatic. This person has really dealt with not knowing how to change this learned behavior pattern. They don't know how to manage their emotion. They don't know how to go to the depths and really do the inner work and realize, like, what are you repressing? Why are you so angry and wanting to be combative or be violent? And then you go to the deeper aspect, depending on what has happened in their childhood, then you start to realize that. That's why I used to see back in the trenches, or, you know, certain places, it's everywhere, why I used to see girls react the way they did, and sometimes they don't even realize how deep the spiritual connection is. Whole time, you sitting here worried about the sex and how good it was, and in reality, that's why they get a little crazy. Men too, they get a little wild, because you don't know, like, when you talk about people dealing with things spiritually, manipulation, whatever type of vices they battling with, and here you are just wanting to invite them into your world and to everything, and a part of you don't realize you start to be drugged into their hell. And that's one thing about the root chakra, or not realizing, like, when people are in survival, it's like that poverty or survival mindset is like hell. It's hell to them. They don't know that because they're not willing to align their other chakras. They're not willing to lead from the heart. They're not willing to go and rise into higher chakras and so forth. And so what they do, they don't realize is that not only through their abandonment, it could be, abandonment wounds and so forth. That's why I started to realize with some women that I did date, especially if they didn't have a healthy connection with their mother, a part of that is abandonment wounds, like emotional abandonment. So this is where they can connect with men, and they're wanting to have this, they want, that the nigga can be so numb because he was never taught to how to express it. So sometimes it can be overwhelming because the man can be very talkative or expressive, and all of a sudden they're not ready for it because they're not used to it. You see what I'm getting at? A lot of things we can say we won't, but then we try to shape and mold people. I've been there. We try to mold them, narcissistically control them into what we want them to be. And a lot of this we don't realize comes from our, learned behavior patterns, societal norms, controlling, manipulative, and deceptive narratives, foundations that are collapsing. That's why a lot of relationships mirror the collapse in the internal foundations of belief systems that we learned from generations or other people who were not balanced in certain chakras, in certain aspects of their life. And that's what you can have people come along and in you thinking that they're trying to destroy your life. Are you able to counter it and realize if you're still here present and breathing, then that's the clarity that I'm sharing with you. It was supposed to destroy you, but it didn't. And that ain't even about just being a survival, because we're going to get out of survival mindset. Now it's the mindset of that. How can you alchemize? Because some of us love to go on, and I'm not saying people shouldn't tell their story. People shouldn't share this and do whatever it is. What I've learned that we have to learn to do is just as much as we want to tell what we went through, you got to balance out with that victim mentality. You got to balance out being a victor, like walking in victory, knowing that you won because with yourself first, because it could have went another way. I start to learn more deeper, like, this is why I be so cautious now with moving forward and even connecting with certain people, simply because if I can intuitively or, discern that, it's something that they're trying to hide or keep away, that's immediately a red and a green flag. The red flags, they're, like seeing what's going on with them that they're not saying. That's a green flag for me, that I'm able to be aware. I'm able to, that's what the beauty of connections. That's the beauty of being lighthearted. That's the beauty of realizing, like, man, the beauty of clarity. We be wanting certain shit externally. Man, are you praying or putting out into the world, or, people say pray or whatever. Are you, before you ask for something, are you asking for some type of clarity? Asking the Most High to reveal those who are enemies of themselves so they can show you that who's the enemy for you. Because in that gives you clarity. That gives you awareness around, oh shit. Okay. And then then that's how you learn. I've learned to move strategically and silently. Certain things I can announce, and then certain things I'm like, you know what? Aha. You ain't always gotta tell the person you got clarity or get this, because it's for you first. It's for you to celebrate first. Like I said, man, it's certain shit I realized, had I not gotten entangled or in with, how many times I feel like I gotta go through it? Absolutely not. I'm telling you, boy, you realize people battling with their own internal demons or whatever you want to call them, their spiritual warfare, their spiritual vices. And you know, sometimes you have to wait a little later to realize, like, damn, like this, you know, whole time I was ignoring and then knowing that this is this. But that's the beauty also of integrity, of authenticity, is that the person eventually will start to let you know, once you start pulling back your energy, you'll get more clarity of like, if they really did it in a work, wouldn't the relationship be more peaceful and harmonious? And especially if they're trying to project that it's you that brought this out of them, instead of seeing it from a place of like, how could I say this? It's like, I'm grateful that a person showed me who they were. I'm grateful that I showed parts of myself that I didn't even realize that was there. But am I able to have empathy for myself and grace, and then for the other person, and then respectfully can move forward in a higher awareness that I myself am worthy of something better, and encourage myself to be able to walk and move forward in something better and more harmonious and more prosperous. And then even with that, whether the person is ready or not, encouraging them to do the same. That's how I feel like a lot of things can be more beautiful, because again, I was telling my bro about that. I was like, you're not going to hear a lot of women and men encouraging other people to, you know, whether you have children or not, to really go within themselves and say, hey, I'm in my becoming who I want to be for myself. I'm not for you right now. Or, you know, I don't feel like you're the partner for me right now. And people's response or reaction says a lot about where they are. And no one knows the depths of your truth and how you met yourself deeper in whatever season and phase that you're in. Because it all, you know how they say, time reveals all eventually, as you realize, like, some of the best decisions you're going to ever make is choosing your fucking self. And choosing yourself is not just, it's bigger than just walking away. It's in the moments where you have to choose yourself to see the bigger picture. And if I knock this motherfucker out, or if I react this way, if I do this, if I do that, and that's the thing about cycle breaking. Those things will be represented. That energy will try to come in, you know, and use that individual certain things to try to, especially if you're on the brink of something bigger and better. It happened to me, but I told myself, I'd be speaking divine covering. I realized, like, there's times where I tell myself, like, you know, I call upon the ancestors of the highest good for just divine love and protection right now, that this transition or whatever it is I'm experiencing goes through smoothly, gracefully. Stepping away, moving around. Because I'm telling you, with someone like being in an experience where you realize, come to the self-awareness that as much as people can tell you with their mouth who they are, it's more than just actions too. Because people can perform very well. It's the discernment. It's the frequency. Like I said, when I got that big clarity of like, man, this shit could have destroyed me, or it was supposed to, that was such the emotions were overwhelming, but I honored them and it came up. But it was such a glorious feeling after that, because I knew that I had just like completed a mission or completed a task or something. And that's how beautiful it is. It's just like, man, I could have did this, I could have did that. But for what? For what? What would it have solved? So I was just like, man, that's one of the biggest things I will always encourage people to realize, like, ask for clarity on situations. Ask for divine insight and clarity. And it'll be revealed to you. Sometimes to some people through dream state, it'll be revealed. I'm doing this, I might need to Like, I need to cut my beard. Sometimes through dream states, sometimes through the fact of if you sit back and just be still and observe long enough, people will, that's why I love these moon transits. That's why I love cycles, because, man, in the heat of the moment, people will say what's really inside of them, how they really feel. And then I had to learn, like, not even get too attached to it. That's another thing about growth where I've experienced that with families and people. Like, and with me, I'm learning, like, okay, that's a receipt right there. The universe keeps receipts. So now, again, that clarity of, like, man, this shit was supposed to destroy you. What it was is that it wasn't so much of me destroying myself. Sometimes it can look that way because when you don't have the awareness around seeing the pattern or the person's pattern or what you're actually in, yes, it can lead you down a path to self-destruction, especially if that person is unaware. It's going to lead you right down with them. They're going to drag you with them, especially if they're unconscious of seeing how what they say, what they do affects not only you and everyone else, family included, anybody. So I was like, dang. When I said that to myself, I was like, this person has no idea, but they were literally, because of they don't really know the depths of who they are, they didn't really get to know themselves, or they're ignoring or distracting themselves. And y'all know what people like this. They will think that just being in your life, they won't see it as not so much of a privilege, but the gratitude of, this person is showing me something. Let me cherish this. And like I said, what ended up happening is that I start to realize, like, in certain connections with people, I was taking on their shit, whether I knew it or not. Especially if you didn't have no boundaries around sex or whatever it is, and naturally coming from a wounded place, you will naturally go right back into the same pattern, repeated patterns, and not with the same person, but different body, same energy in a way, as they say. But again, that moment, like, getting that clarity, like, I was like, yo, it made me feel so much lighter because I had to honor what I repressed, because what I had repressed was the fact of wanting to ignore at that moment everything about what the person was not just showing me, but ignoring what they refused to see within themselves. And the beauty of it is that that's why I, again, insinuate on integrity and authenticity, because in your ability to see yourself, it will show you where people are. It will show you the excuses that they make not to really be better for themselves. And what ends up happening is that the environment for some, growing up can become toxic if it was already toxic. And again, a lot of people will not come out and say, not only does this not longer serve me, but I want to exit respectfully. I want to leave with peace and dignity. And what's that saying goes, like, leaving something better than you found it. And that's been one of my greatest lessons. It's leaving something better than you found it. And sometimes you got to go through those lessons where you've done things in life and they come back around, and that be the lesson. And to remind you, dang, it's probably something I put someone through, or that's not always the case, but it reminds you to come back on track to realize, like, be mindful, not only how you treat yourself, but how you treat others. And yeah, and that be the deep clarity, because you'll know what to allow, who to allow, and what to allow to allow access to you. That's what I'm trying to get out. To what, and to who, and to yourself. And again, that's one of the most, I realize one of the greatest lessons I've learned is learning to see beyond what people have on the surface and really their intention, which I'm grateful for, because again, certain things I realized I would have never reconnected, like in the past, with people, friendships, business, and so forth. And I even learned it even better now, to have a light heart, but at the same time, when people can try to come into your life and so forth, those boundaries are set. you being guarded in your heart, or staying grounded in your heart, is just simply there to see, are you gonna stay in this, or are you going to blossom and be open to support and receive in a more, genuine and healthy way. And so, man, let me tell you, I'm telling y'all from experience, there was certain shit I realized, like, whoa. Because if you live in very close to people relationships in the past, and if you pay close attention enough, you ask yourself, well, what window did you allow yourself, like a year or so, to recover? What type of window did you have to really pour into yourself? And when that's ignored, it ain't just a red flag. It's so much of realizing, like, when you do ignore it, you'll go through it with them. Like, those things will eventually still come up. And, yeah. Phew, I'm just reflecting, because, boy, I laugh because you know how you can be sitting anger and certain emotions. I just start laughing even more and more because I'm like, yo, I get it now. Because once you start to pay attention, like, think about even before, how far you come along. There were certain things, friends and people, relationships, certain things that were supposed to. Now, you start to get the clarity around the situation. That shit was supposed to destroy me. They wanted me to go here when the divine was calling me here. They wanted to tell me I needed to go do this, work here, I need to go do this. No. They wanted me to be all this for this relationship and this friendship and this and this. And even when you choosing yourself and counter the energy, it'll always reveal itself. It'll always play out. And I also learned everything will always work in your favor, especially what type of seeds you're planting. I was, man, I'm telling you, that I'm still processing the fact of, like, that clarity I got. And I'm not surprised, because when you know what type of intentions you've been setting, when you know you've been planting seeds, and then when you get to a full moon, it highlights things. That's why for some people, they don't celebrate around moments where it's called for you to do that. It ain't gotta be about celebrating ways where y'all gotta go out and do all this. No, it's celebrating the cycles. It's celebrating the phases, to where at a point in time, yesterday is gone or whatever it is. But now I'm saying, like, what clarity did I get? What insight? How do I feel? Is this feeling different? How do I feel about myself? How do I feel about this situation? Okay, practically, logically, how do I want to approach it? And once you shift that, and that's what alchemy is, through the phases from that which was in the dark, the moon cycles, that which was in the dark, because the moon happens in cycles, and then the full is the illumination of what was cycling, or the phases from the new moon, the dark aspect, which was hidden, the feminine, to illuminated in the masculine aspect, which you can still say it's all feminine, but it still just shows, like, going from here and then the illumination. It's almost like when you look at the cycle where it's full, it's like, notice how, I think it's a full and the new moon, like, basically the cycles, they literally enter in the center, like right here. So it's like, literally, I notice around full moon, so much shit come up. It do not surprise me, but then I had to realize, like, look at your growth. Remember where you are. And did it destroy you? No, it redefined you, it shaped you, it molded you. And now moving forward, it's the awareness around that. That's the alchemy in that shit. That's the transmutation. That's the different phases you're going through. And we're told we're supposed to be the same way, act the same way, do the, no. That's why the cycles of the moon are in certain, constellation or zodiac, whatever you want to call it. And it rules different parts of the body. All of that shit is connected. Like, when you talk about cancer, cancer is the chest. This chest, for women, the breasts, the heart space, or in this area, And then when you think about on the zodiac aspect, it rules the mother, the family, the home, all these things. So you got to ask yourself personally, what comes up for you? It's not going to be the same for people. What is it illuminating within you? Because some people say it's in Cancer or Leo, but depending on wherever it is, what is the energy illuminating around you? What's in your heart? What can you cleanse? See, that moment of, I felt like, oh, that clarity was showing me the work that I already did, or like the putting in that effort towards facing things. Because before the full moon, there were moments where I was just sitting in solitude with myself. I had just created. It's beauty when you reflect and realize like the cycles. I just literally have 2 books coming in the mail that I just published. So it's like reflecting on that. And then it's also being able to recognize, well, what always will be illuminated, especially with certain transits now, who has been inauthentic. Because the phase of the moon, no matter what people do in the dark, it always comes to light, illumination, and cycles. Always, what goes around comes around. So no matter what people feel like they've hidden, spiritually, mentally, what they've done, it always plays out. The energy always plays out. And the way these transits are, we're like days away from Saturn going in the area. Man, I look forward to shit. Listen. You know how they say, I look forward to a lot of these things, because once you know what you've been doing, the energy has no choice but to respond from what you planted. That's why y'all don't realize how vital this shit is. For somebody to be envious and mad about the information, the downloads, the insight that you get, how are you angry at that when you have the same abilities? When you can do the same internal work to get that fucking clarity. That's the thing about breaking cycles. What did this full moon or this cycle and this moment teaching me? This motherfucker is not ready. This motherfucker is still, it ain't even about the other person, but when you sit in yourself, it'll naturally be illuminated in the other person, because no one can hide from the cycles of the moon, that no one can hide from the sun. Y'all don't realize like this year is ruled by the sun. It's going to illuminate everything no one can hide from. And that sun is an aspect of yourself. The masculine aspect that shines light. The sun shines light on everything that can no longer be hidden. So that means people's inability to do the shadow work and see themselves is going to be highlighted. That's why celebrity culture and all this other shit and all this other shit is collapsing, because the sun is illuminated that which isn't rooted in truth, honesty, integrity, or that which is shifting into that. It's literally highlighting the roots, showing the roots of where people belief systems, their truth lies, in the depths of who they are. It's going to show you through these transits of who's been purging, honoring their emotions, shifting and all. It's going to show you. That's why a lot of these transits are going to be so rewarding. I look forward to it. I'm grateful for the clarity, because I'm telling myself the patience in assuming that I got to go do this. And I'm like, am I doing this for what? And I had to get clarity. Am I doing this for who? And am I living in my truth? I realized that has a ripple effect on everyone. So I'm saying, like, I look forward to certain transits and shit, because I'm not hiding from me. And I can sure as give a fuck how people feel and what they say and what they do, because when you in alignment, you are untouchable. You are divinely guided and protected. So I'm telling you, man, like, in what was supposed to destroy you, you start to realize, like, sometimes it has nothing to do with you. You are supposed to see the lesson. Because in some of the lessons, you will realize, like, in people's inability to face themselves, to sit down and see what they need to see, it's only going to lead them to enlightenment, which is just another way of saying like a path to self-sabotage and self-destruction due to their patterns, due to their own learned behavior patterns, which you cannot save people from. It's only going to lead them down a path to self-destruction. And if you're willing to go with them, that's why some people get off the ride. They're like, you know what, this is where I exit. And I can see why that happens in connections, marriages, and relationships, and whatever, business and so forth. Because certain things we want to ignore, how long you want to keep ignoring it? Until it gets to a place of no return? No. The divine lets you see this is where they at. Now get your ass off the train, get your ass off the ride, and let me show you that there is something else that's in alignment with what you're doing. Now, this may bring up insecurities in other people, but that should remind you to be more secure and rooted in who you are, because it's not supposed to make sense to them. I'm trying to show you that as much as you thought that they were a part of your vision, in their inability to really learn about themselves, in their inability to learn that emotional stableness actually structure things, then while I'm going to show you how emotionally unstable they are, or unbalanced. I'm going to show you that they've never done the healing work that they say they did. So with that now, guess what? This is for your protection. You had to go through that because that was protection in that. Y'all be thinking that when you go through hardship or certain shit, that's still the divine protecting you to align you with a partner who's in alignment or someone else who's going through something similar. So then when you align with that person, now all of a sudden they get you because they get themselves. Or they've aligned with, something greater. And sometimes we think that this partner or some person is supposed to be your all be all. I keep reminding y'all, when they don't do the inner work and they too focused on what you're doing or they too focused on external shit, they're gonna distract themselves right into singlehood. And that we've all been through that. They're gonna distract themselves right into a solo mission or right into something where, again, it's all a lesson. They just didn't realize like they were supposed to be doing the shadow work and facing themselves in the same connection and relationship and partnership. That's important. Because that's the thing about evolution. Are you willing to, when you hear people say, are you willing to grow together? You don't see the other flower trying to outgrow the other person. That's the whole misconception around shit. That's how people destroy their own relationships, because they'll have a mindset around, well, I gotta be more like the man or woman, or I gotta carry the load so much. And they keep forgetting, like, in partnership and learning partnership, I know I'm not telling you to settle, but it's okay to be patient. It's okay to realize, like, you have this, tables always fucking turn. You have this during that moment, then this person may have this. No, some people want to stay in the driver's seat. And now they tired. Now they about to go to sleep at the wheel. And then they blame the other person, which builds resentment, which shows the fact of your inability to slow down, to pace yourself, get to a rest stop, chill. So yeah, man, there's so many things I tell you. Like, I've learned more. One of my previous videos, I was saying like how is it Duke Ellington? I was reading a book. He was like mentioning how a goal is a dream with the finish line, I believe. And what most people don't realize, like I said before, some people goal unconsciously that they're not aware of is to destroy their life. And then when you get a part of that, their goal unconsciously, when they're not aware of what they're doing, what they're saying and so forth, will literally destroy you if you allow it. If you allow it. That's why some people can go through so much emotional loss after a connection or relationship if they don't know how to alchemize. That's why some people, they fear starting over, because they see it as a form of like being so caught up in how the world gonna view them. I'm telling you, I've been in connections like that. People, you don't want to be supportive of a man with a vision. But some of you want to choose a man with a vision or goals of being the biggest drug dealer, the biggest music this, the biggest music. Like all these things again, does it have substance though? In his music, does it have substance? Knowing if it's going to connect and reach the masses, does it have substance? Is it being led with honoring that which he's either navigating through, accepting, and so is he really learning about himself? Same thing with women. That's what I realized. Y'all got to realize it's mirrors. In the goals that you're doing, and this what I also learned too, and where people can't fake it no more, is that, let's say for instance, people can sit here talking about building stuff with humanity, or they do all these other things and they want to build with people. But then if you don't have a connection with people of all shades or knowing the climate of what's going on in the world, that's inauthenticity. That's fake. You're literally building a foundation to profit from people rather than to build connection. So that's why some people, what is your goal in mind? Is it really to reach people to a depth, or is it to reach into their fucking pocket? To build your dream life. And that's what's collapsing. Y'all don't realize. That's what a lot of people have done. They built from an unstable place. A place of woundedness. They built their careers and all this shit around focusing more externally and not realizing as things are being restored spiritually, that feminine archetype, you think you 20 ahead, y'all being perceived that people 20 years ahead, or they have all this stuff. It seems like they ahead of everybody. But y'all don't realize in the rise of the divine feminine, it actually brings up that which is distorted in people no matter what they have on the surface. No matter how good they look, it don't matter what they have, it don't matter how they obtain certain stuff. There's always something inwardly that's still going on with people. We all going through something. I call it out like I see, like I recognize injustice. Why would I be a part of shit that I know that's not serving humanity or everybody? Or especially knowing that it hasn't, you just want to come and think that I want to join some shit for clout or money? Be a part of something because of what? Money? When I realize I am the spiritual currency. So now you're going to try to come or want to invite me and some. No. Access denied. And that's the thing about realizing, like, your access, the very thing you allow people to have access to, as you set more boundaries, their access is denied gradually over a course of time. As things start to get revealed to you, you realize like, as I step into more of my power, step into who I am, and I'm elevating, walking up these stairs, you lagging behind, or you get tripped up, or you forgetting about the fact of go at your own pace. See, we get caught up in thinking everybody got to run up the stairs together. Everybody got to do this together. Sometimes you got to see the other person. You can be distracted on what's going on here, then you realize like, everybody's doing this. People are inspirations. They're guiding lights. Everybody can't be like that. Everybody's not spiritually equipped. That's a whole nother thing. Everyone's not spiritually equipped. You can't save them from their lessons. I won't ever forget what a girl told me years ago. You got to learn to leave people where they're at. That means where they're at is emotionally, mentally, physically, all of that. Meaning where they're at, where they want to be. I tell you, man, so much shit getting revealed. Like I said, I know people who are in all types of shit in the world, career-wise and so forth. If the divine say, I want you to have this conversation, I want you to see not only where their heart is, but what is your intention behind your business? What is your intention behind, what you're creating? The discernment real. Because then when you'll find out sometimes you sleeping with the enemy. You telling me that niggas who wanted to destroy the hood and serve your mama or somebody else drugs, you literally supported that shit. That's why I say certain shit we involve ourselves in, you don't realize it can tarnish your reputation and destroy you. But when you are powerful and you know how to alchemize or transmute shit, like I said, it was supposed to destroy you. But your purpose and your calling was higher than that mission or certain things that was supposed to take you out. Some of y'all, yeah, you could have supported these same dudes, but then you didn't take that ride with him that time. Y'all don't even see shit as divine intervention. I told you one time I was supposed to go to a party when I was young, and I knew certain shit now to be spiritual warfare. And one of my homeboys got shot in the leg, and a bullet traveled and almost went to his heart. I was supposed to meet up with him, didn't go. Certain discernment. Oh, y'all don't think discernment be when or divine protection be where something can happen in life and to other people is perceived as, oh, he down bad, she down bad, she ain't got this, look at what she's going through. Because they don't see on the upside of things, the divine is allowing that person to go through something for their own, internal growth or experience that they're willing to see it. Because just as much as they can be up, just like that, they can, just as much as they can be down at that moment as you perceive it, they can be up. And then the tables can turn. And that's why I always, I've noticed that. During that process where I sat back and the divine said, I'm going to reveal to you that I'm going to show you who's really supportive to the depths. They're not going to have your heart. They're not going to do what you do. But I'm going to show you who's really for you. And guess what? It may be very uncomfortable because you will never perceive it to be this person. But you also don't know what they internalize. You also don't know the fact that they can see something. They're spiritual too. They have gifts. So you don't even know. Sometimes they're in secret competition. It ain't even just making it about other people. It's just the fact of how sometimes we have to realize that it's a part of the growth, the experience. Because they can't eat off the menu. They can have access, but they won't be able to get what you're, have access to certain things. So yes, man, I'm telling you, people sit back and judge your whole situation, laugh and this and that. I haven't ever in my life, well, this is me, because I've been, knowing now the phrase, the phrase of an empath. I've always had a heart for people that are on the street or going through stuff. So when I went through stuff, which I didn't ever think I would have to experience, but now that I see the patterns and see certain things, I start to recognize oh yeah, you were supposed to go through that. But I wanted, to see who was who through certain moments. And even when they go through stuff, because in your not allowing people to have access to you, listen, you gotta allow them to go through that suffering, those lessons to realize it is what it is. That's a climate of a lot of things right now. Y'all want to jump in. I'm not jumping into people. This divine retribution. I'm not jumping in if I'm not called to be supportive of certain people. No, you gotta allow them to, and that can look different. Distancing yourself, no contact, certain amount of access to you. Yes. Because what it forces people to do is to see themselves. And and what it does is that uncomfortability, whether they name calling, doing this and doing whatever it is behind the scenes, it's still a form of what needs to be honored and come out. That shows you the repressed shit. And see, that's what divine protection is that when you're done and you're tired, there's always going to be a way out. I always tell myself there's always going to be a way out. It may not look like you want it to be sometimes, but it's much better than what it was. Better than the environment, better than the situation, better than whatever it was. So, and it's worth it. Because you just never know, divine, you take you through something where you just need a backpack. And on the other side, here you are, because you did the inner work. everything's gonna be supplied for you. Everything paid in full. You ask for it, it's there. I don't ever regret anything about when I've gotten insight to where, okay, this shit is happening quickly, so let me get ready, let me get prepared. And your soul knows. Like I said, divine intervention and protection would be you having to move away when you don't want to, but you need to. Or you having to go through that experience you didn't want to, but you needed to. Because it strengthened you emotionally. It shaped and molded you in different parts that you just thought were just on the surface. When you were called to really become rooted in who you are. To accept and be grounded more in who you are. I'm telling you, man, it's... Whew. Well, I don't ever judge no one's situation, bro, because like I said, I don't went through things in a relationship, and who am I to pass judgment when I hear about somebody else? A lot of that stuff be a reminder to, oh, dang, I'm not the only one. Everyone going through something. And then certain conversations where someone's like, you know, I gotta allow myself to go through this and make better decisions and so forth. You needed to hear that. You needed to be around people who can make better decisions for themselves and be better for themselves and so forth. Because it supports you, it encourages you. That's how I also learned how to be, you know, like I said, it ain't about being perfect. Nah, you go through shit, everyone is. And, you know, I also learned, like, you can go away, but staying away is a different thing, too, because there's always going to be something that pulls you into the direction of the bigger picture. A lot of things I feel like we go through is to see that we are prepared to share the gems with the youth as well. So, yeah, man, I like I said, certain shit was supposed to, woo. And I was like, you know what? I know I had to go through things to get ready for people who are going to, so many people that are coming out of these old timelines. That's what I realized. It's the fact that we survived or are now coming into these thriving timelines to where it's going to allow people to thrive in what they perceive as thriving. Nah, they're going to come from a place of a wellness place now, like prioritizing certain things. And it becomes so much more easier. Like, it becomes more lighter. That's what I've learned. I was carrying a lot of shit, I say about 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago that I didn't want to. In certain situations, I can tell you, when you realize, like, dang, this shit could have destroyed me, it was supposed to, that's when you let it down. That's when you let it go. That's when you be like, oh, this was supposed to destroy me. It didn't. So why do I need to hold on to it any longer? And you discard of it. You like, and that's how I, you know, visualize emotions. When you see like it's a pressure in the pipe, and you realize like, dang, this was supposed to do, you know, what's that saying goes? What's ignored was something they fight to be acknowledged. And I'm telling you the beauty of alignment. I was told years ago, you know, through other people that I didn't even know long enough. I had this dream about this, I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, at that time, you can't see the forest from the trees. But now, boy, you know, certain times, like I said, when shit feel like it's going to destroy you. But I was sitting here believing, like, at the time, like, damn, why I got to go through this with this? You know, why I got to go through this? And the whole time, you're getting equipped. You thinking that shit is going to destroy you, when no, it's here to redefine you, to build your character, to reshape your perspective, your outlook on life. And then I'm gonna tell you, once you start pulling back your energy, and once you start really getting clarity, and then you really start to seeing, like, I'll tell you another thing, if you're ever in a situation where you feel like something was literally supposed to destroy you, it will reveal to you how powerless people are. even in your sometimes ability, like I've been there where I would display when I didn't know how to manage my emotions, like try to control the outcome, try to control certain situations. In reality, that was a false sense of power. I wasn't really honoring from a place of realizing I can't control them. This outcome is gonna be whatever it is. Is how I respond to it, and that's why I realized where I'm at now. It's like in my response to things, it really shows you how powerless people can be. Because when I started reflecting, realize, dang, I remember. So I'll use it as an example. 2-3 years ago, you had people, and this is where revoking access is. This is what I had to learn, and this is why I also learned boundaries, because that'll determine certain relationships. What do you value? Privacy. What do you value? Because see, the shift is also about what we value, and in shifting values, that's how relationships can be exposed. Exposure is what's hidden. That's how relationships crumble and collapse, because you will realize whatever it was built on, if it wasn't built upon authenticity, or if it wasn't built upon core values that reflect that, man, you will realize sometimes that's where emotional loss, or that's where a lot of things come in, when you realize like whole time you don't build an identity around something that isn't of substance. And it don't just be you, but when you have integrity and authenticity, and you're coming to that realization that you built something, that's who you still can get clarity and insight to build on something completely different. And who's willing to stay and who willing to support that will show you their core values. That's why I've noticed with people who fell away or certain shit, I realized like they too were a part of the vision. They too had to come along and remind me that fuck you, homeboy. Fuck your vision, because that's what they're saying. When people are not, when they financially abuse you, when they withhold information, when they withhold things because of whatever their wounded ego is, or whatever their pride and whatever, their insecurities, when they try to speak on your life and project the fact that you're not going to be able to do this, or this is how your life is going to be, that let that shit be fueling. And in that moment, it can hurt, because it can come from people you would have never thought it come from, but you start to realize they hurting. And one of my previous videos talks about how the fact of you talking about people in the world that never had goals when they were young, or they never came to a place where this is what I want, this is what I desire out of life. By all means necessary, I'm gonna, whoever's in the way gonna get ran over, in the sense of like, are you gonna support? And even if you're not supporting, that's still support. Like, remind me, like, I need to support myself. Like I said, me reflecting now, when did I do that first book? 2 years, it's almost 2 years ago. The end of 24, man, listen, the shit I was going through, what I was experiencing, and then I tell myself now, I'm like, yo, what did that teach me? What do I need to put more of my energy towards? In that aspect, you also have to be mindful of the people. Have they changed? And I don't mean as a chameleon. I mean, but have they done the internal work? Have they really faced themselves? Have they really got to know themselves deeper? And even with that, have they masked themselves? Because it's all going to be revealed eventually. And so, like I said, from that 2-year span, 2.5 years ago, I remember specifically, I tell y'all, the universe keeps receipts. Hey, keep receipts. No, you know who was watching. You know who will say, who will try to return and say, oh, I didn't know how to get in contact with you. Bullshit. Especially we talk. You know my name. You could have researched. We all done been there before. Not everybody, but I know me. My Scorpio energy at that time, get the peek and get the research and get the spying, what they call it, like privacy. Yeah, I'm going to dig into some shit. But I'm going to go into it and I'm going to see like, okay, what? Okay then, okay, this what type of time are you on? Especially if we parted ways on something, or I let you in on something and you just pretend. again, alchemize it. Now let me alchemize all this anger, this frustration around, again, my own insecurities of feeling like, or expectations of this person had to be a certain way. They were supposed to check up on me. No, the fuck they wasn't. And so, what they say, people make time for what they want. They will. And so, again, when I reflect 3 years ago, it's so prominent to where people are. Like, I know specific people, whether family members and so forth. And it's like, dang, I met myself much more deeper. Like, you gotta know who you are even through all those moments. I went from, and I always say this because this is just me not so much popping my shit, it's me clapping for my fucking self, or my accomplishments, the goals I set out. It's the goals I set out because it's not just from a place for me, but how I know how it's going to support other people and guide them through very challenging moments or dark times where it's going to be very insightful. And I'm just a vessel. It's not about me trying to take credit for, oh my God, I'm going to celebrate regardless in my own unique way. But I remember, like, as you start to realize, like 3 years ago, man, my perspective, my approach, my emotions around things was completely different. My ego masked, certain things fail. Because the thing about when the ego dissolves, that doesn't mean it go away. It's just like a healthy ego. But when certain things start to dissolve, you no longer hold on to the identity around how anyone saw you. Mother, father, spouse, whatever. You no longer hold on to that. And so that's the thing what a lot of people are not willing to accept, is to be able to support someone through the fact of not so much the person outgrowing them, they out-healed them or they evolve. And while you were getting distracted or worried about how this person's still navigating and going through this, you're not even asking yourself, how can you be of support just by being who you are, being the best version or showing up the best way you know how. And that's the thing I don't lose receipts over. I recall and remember, have receipts over, like, dang, bro, I was at a moment where I was just trying to, 3 years ago, just trying to enjoy my daughter. I was just trying to reconnect with her mother. I was trying to do a lot of things to where you don't forget about how people treated you when you just needed, as I said before in one video, a soft place to land. Especially when you're coming off a journey and experience of realizing, like, spiritual warfare have your ass wanting to rest more. Learning to navigate your nervous system while wanting to have you sit down with yourself and regulate shit. Learning more, like, again, going towards what I know I was called to do, even if people couldn't see it. And I'm telling you, it reveals a lot. It's not going to make sense to people. Some people feel like, again, it'll reveal what their values are, what they prioritize. And that can be money. That can be whatever it is their vices are. And all that shows you is that that's what's so important, why it's the relationship with yourself. As your value changes, you will realize that the relationships that cannot withstand what your core values reflect is going to collapse. If I'm sitting here saying I value peace and I value respect, and I got into this place where you overstepping my boundaries and you don't care about that, what the fuck makes you think I'm gonna stay? Or what makes you think I'm not already gone? That's with anybody. That's the beauty of taking back your power, sitting on your throne, and not letting someone come and try to dethrone you or even want to attempt to take that. They couldn't. So I told myself, I'm like, man, in that not being able to have access to me, I was called to do these things. It don't gotta make sense. It don't supposed to. You got shit in your life that you called to do. And when you're willing to do it, nothing else matters. You ain't even gonna be concerned how people view you. They're going to be upset. They're going to be angry. They're going to be expecting more of you. Notice that too. When you shift and things start to happen and your values change, you'll start to really see what people unhealthy attachments. They'll expect more of you, even when they're not even sometimes not even reciprocating it. They're not even giving themselves that. That's why they can want more out of you. Somebody needed that. That's why certain people can want more out of you. They expect more out of you. But it's like you don't even expect more out of yourself. You don't even have standards or goals. Like, make it make fucking sense. The math ain't mathing. You wonder why you can't have this goal of receiving this is because you don't even have the belief system. You don't even have the blueprint. And that's what you start to realize too. A lot of motherfuckers is not equipped because they don't carry the blueprint you have. And you mad. Now you mad. Now you feeling the way. Now you want to attack me, project, and so forth. Whole time I'm like, damn. In your ability to do that, you also reflecting back to me to be inspired. Now I'm inspired by your ignorance. Telling you, man, I just call, like I said, and everybody not ready for truth. They're not ready to see. They don't like that mirror being held up to them. I had to learn that shit too. I would not be having these conversations and be prepared to speak and connect with people had the mirror not be held up to me. The fuck? Because that shit is only asking me to go look at myself, go deeper, learn more about yourself. You didn't have all the answers. That's just like me coming into knowing now, having, newer things that coming into a newer timeline, realize like, oh dang, I see why this person was, like this, or certain perspectives on why they approach it this way, because that higher version of you is, again, I had to realize that's why I wasn't so realizing like it's not so much what was sent to destroy me, it was sent to redefine my values. That's what I'll say. My value is around how I love myself, how I show up, my core values, that which I value, my value system. When you start to realize like this is what makes certain connections collapse, foundations, you shatter their illusion around the foundations of whatever they want to create. And again, value system, your whatever you want to call it, belief system, your value system. Oh, I don't know. That's cool. That's not going to change what I value system. And again, when you're not on the same page with certain stuff, especially this year, being like a rule by one, when you're not on the same accord, a lot of shit, you realize like, okay, this ain't destroying me. This is pretty much asking me to redefine how my outlook on life. My at a time being a follower and losing sight of the leader. Now I'm realizing, oh, a lot of this shit is happening for me to rise into this leadership. Taking back authority is leading your own life, not allowing people to lead you astray. Not allowing people to realize, like, again, lead you down a path of self-destruction. Stop ignoring people's path. Their mindset is more focused on money. Okay, now I clocked it. That means you will get pissed or entitled to whatever it is I have or come into. You will feel more entitled than I am, and you ain't even put in the work. You ever had that shit? Motherfucker will feel so entitled to something they had quick to claim your cousin or, son, dog, baby girl that ain't put in no work. Y'all don't realize a lot of that shit be divine protection and intervention. I see why a lot of people, I know some people, I can just see why one would have to be to enjoy the fruits of their labor or to come back home to self and knows joy. It's so important to realize the people who have done that, who have met themselves that deep. Because what would be concerning or dangerous is the ones who haven't, because they'll feel not only just a sense of entitlement, but they'll naturally want to destroy that, whether through whatever comes up, their insecurity, their jealousy, their envy, Yeah, that be divine protection, because you don't know what's on people, you don't know what they fighting against and so forth. That's why they can feel, again, that sense of entitlement to feel like they gotta have what you have. And they don't even want to meet that self as deep through their own natural abilities and gifts. Yeah, man. Value system. And one thing I've learned is slowly it'll start revealing itself. It'll start, when you do the inner work, like I've been noticing on my path, like I said, no one knows the depths. How as I start to value more peace, I get more of it. As I start to value other things more than just at a time where I would be so focused on money or the outcome of things, I just let them align. I just let it align. I be like, I pay attention to the signs of the synchronicity. I'm like, okay, I'm always exactly where I'm supposed to be. That's how divinely guided I know I am. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And or if this happens, a wreck happens over here, something is just showing me, detour, go this way. I want you to see something over here. Yep. I went and looked at something the other day, and it's so funny because it's like years ago, I'm like, why the fuck I keep seeing these numbers? And I didn't understand and overstand it years ago. And it was two synchronicities, y'all call them angels, two numbers that I saw, and I was like I was talking to someone, I looked through the window, I was like, man, I used to see this number all the fucking time. Then I looked to another window, I'm like, bro, fuck out of here, bro. But it gave me a feeling of, this is where you're supposed to be. You're exactly where you're supposed to. Y'all gotta, man, this shirt got me itching. It's my hair's up on here. But this is exactly where you're supposed to be. And I was like, whoa. And again, when you're ready, I don't know if it happens like this, but like you can have, you know how they say, I was telling one of my friends, like, if you don't know what a tower is in tarot, a lot of things we perceive as bad and evil, it literally is showing us where something could probably be unbalanced, or the birthing or rebirthing of something from something old to new, or something divine, something feminine, and being rebirthed into the masculine aspect. Like when I see something and I realize, I had just went and saw this, did this and did this, and the next day, you be like, what the fuck happened? Next thing you know, that be also, count that as a blessing, count that as a message too. Count that as a fact that this is what you're getting prepared for. That's why you had to go see this. That's why you had to step out. Then after that, sometimes people reveal themselves. Their energy is supposed to reveal who they are, because guess what? Where's your heart at? Where's your intention? If you're going to have it, hold tight to that vision. Don't nobody got to know how you got it. If you know that your intentions were pure behind it, because either way, it will be illuminated. Certain things are just for you and the divine. It don't supposed to make sense for people. Because as soon as you get it, or certain things, the ones how certain people, whatever energy they held, they'll either support, clap, or most likely, whatever's in them will reveal itself. So come back home to yourself. Like I said, them tower moments, that shit be constantly, at a time, I'll be like, dang, we'll put our energy towards like just focusing on, well, this gonna happen. No, let people reveal themselves. Let it all unfold. Let it just play itself out. And then all of a sudden you realize, like, dang, you know what? Whole time I had to get this clarity. That's why I don't be, some things you be wanting to rush. I had to get this clarity before I step into this. Before I had to get this had to purge out of me. I had to get this insight, clarity. I had to get this awareness around, okay, don't ignore this, because if you ignore it now, you come into wherever it is, new, whether relationship, new place, new home, new whatever, whatever you're coming into. What's ignored then, and you push it down, you're gonna carry it right into, somewhere else. That's why I realized, I'm like, I'm glad this happened. I'm glad, like what they say, the Most High or God reveals the hearts of people before you come into something. Phew. And let me tell you something. It's just so funny because it's a full moon. I believe it's either in Cancer or Leo. And again, I'm telling you, I told myself it's certain things people have said and done. And I told you, I vowed to myself they won't ever have access again. They'll be able to see me, but they won't be able to touch me. Yup. And you got to value yourself on that. And then hold yourself to that higher standard. Because your higher self wants you to, needs you to. So I told, and your inner child needs you to protect it. That's why I started to recognize stuff I couldn't ignore them. I'm like, bro, I'm accepting this. I'm embracing it. Yeah. So, y'all take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.